So this just happened. Those texts were revealed, and then White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this on X. The Atlantic has conceded these were not war plans. She goes on to say this entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater who is well known for his sensationalist spin.
All right, guys, buckle up, because what you're about to see is not some conspiracy theory or French report. Guys, this is straight from the White House press corps. Peter Doocy lays out leaked signal messages involving Trump's top intel officials, real-time drone strike details, and a so-called journalist who decided to publish them all just days before a key testimony. Fox News is going to bring the facts, but there's a lot more under the surface here, guys. Watch this and then stick with me, because we're digging into the real story that they don't want you to see.
Dana and Bill, good morning. What is a war plan? We know that the Pentagon uses sophisticated spy satellite imaging and coordinates to carry out strikes like the ones against the Houthis. None of that is listed in these texts that were just released, but there are some very specific timing guidance given about when things are going to be happening. There was a Pete Hegseth text to the group, and he's previewing something at 14:15 military time. He says, strike drones on target, and then in all caps, this is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. There's a lot of stuff like that in here. The Atlantic reporter says that Caroline Leavitt told him she did not support releasing these texts despite assurances from spy chiefs that there was no classified information inside. We know that we know that Jeffrey Goldberg released them anyway within the last 20 minutes or so. The president sees this all as a cautionary tale about secrets spilling out anyway. He told reporters yesterday during a cabinet meeting, he said, last week he was in the Situation Room. There was something very important, and he had a couple people hooked up by the line, and he said, cancel the line. Sorry, fellas. What you do is we'll tell you about the meeting, because I know people get on those lines, whether it's Signal or anything else. A lot of moving parts here. We expect a lot to change between now and when the White House press briefing is at 1 o'clock. Dana and Bill.
Okay, now, Peter, let's take it a step at a time here. The president said yesterday we screwed up, essentially. Lesson learned there. But you wonder how much longer this dribbles. And at the moment, we'll bring in Kevin McCarthy in a moment here, get his take on this about how signals used in Capitol Hill in Washington, whether or not it's the right thing to do or not. Has anyone lied under oath, Peter, that we can say? Because we watched that hearing yesterday.
That's a great question, Bill. It will depend on whether or not anything in this in these texts that have now been published, that we just printed out and are still going through, actually turns out to be classified. John Ratcliffe was explaining yesterday, under questioning from senators, that it's basically up to Pete Hegseth, who is running point on an operation like this, to decide if these specifics, these details, are classified or not. If Pete Hegseth had not decided that they were classified at the time, even though it is definitely sensitive information that you would not want adversaries to see, then it would appear that they're clean on this, and that there is nothing classified in there. Is it embarrassing? Mike Waltz himself said that this episode is embarrassing. He's taking responsibility for adding this reporter. He says that they've got Elon Musk and the Doge engineers, some of the brightest technical minds in the world, looking at his phone to figure out how exactly Jeffrey Goldberg got added in here. And it's really something to see. As somebody who is not a big consumer of war plans, it definitely seems like it's at least a war outline. It would seem like the Pentagon had more information to actually go and get these targets, but it is definitely, it's in the same ballpark as a war plan.
Well, and I think that Jeffrey Goldberg might not have intended initially to release the text. Maybe he would have anyway. I don't know. But I think
but you know what's interesting about that, Dana? And what is interesting about that, because of the people that are involved, here at the White House, they used to tell us, I remember there were a lot of issues with Joe Biden with this, that the president's schedule is classified. And that was one of the things when they were looking at the Biden documents. Like, there were old schedules of his. That's classified because you don't want people to know when and where the principals are. So they overclassify a lot of stuff. But when you look at this, it's unclear why Jeffrey Goldberg necessarily waited a couple weeks to release it, because the strikes had already happened, and it's not explaining anything. And anybody can go and look at the Atlantic's website. It's published right there. But they're not explaining, like, this is how U.S. satellites work, and this is where exactly our informants with the Houthis are. There's nothing like that in here. It is all looking back, timing of when strikes, bombs that had already exploded were going to explode. And so it's confusing. And Caroline Leavitt is going to have some explaining to do.
Okay, so just to be clear on the timeline, then we're going to bring Kevin McCarthy here. The attacks hit on Saturday, March 15th. Okay, as of today, that's 11 days ago. The piece itself came out on the 24th, which was Monday. Do I have this right? So that's a period of 7, 8, 9 days. And Peter, thank you. We're going to be back to you momentarily. Let's bring in Kevin McCarthy into the conversation here. A lot to get into, Kevin. Thank you for your time today. There was, you could argue, ample time to go back to Hegseth and others and say, what was this all about? And then you'd have more complete story there. Nonetheless, it's come out the way it has. Based on your read right now, have they been telling the truth?
Based on my read, yes. Listen, the first thing I would look as an American, was the mission successful? That's the very first thing you care about. Yes, it was, and no American was harmed, and we took care of terrorists. I think President Trump has handled this the very best. What did he initially say? We screwed up, and it is a learning moment. The way they're answering, I thought John Radcliffe did an excellent job in that hearing, explaining how signal was put on his phone the day he walks in as CIA. I think what we need to do here is not to carry this on longer. That will harm the administration. Answer it exactly as President Trump said. It is a learning situation. Let's find out why he was on your phone. People have missed texts before, but how did his number get in there? If Mike Waltz has never talked to him before, that's a concern. Somehow it's on there. And then learn from this moment about moving forward not to do this again. That's all that has to be said and to continue to move. My only question to Goldberg is, though, why did you wait so long? Why didn't you just pick up the phone and then call the Secretary of Defense and ask him about this? I mean, we have in history a lot of times press during wartime or others when they found something out to work with your government. He could still write the story, but did he hold it just because he wanted to embarrass somebody a day before a hearing and they don't know what's happening? That's another question I would have. But at the very end, learn from this experience. It's not giving the coordinates of where it was going. So is it embarrassing? Yes, admit that, and change the direction and make sure you correct this behavior not to do it again.
Well, and Jeffrey Goldberg will have to answer about the timing, but I do think it's interesting. He could have done it the other way, too, which is to immediately say something, look at these bozos, look at what they provided to me, and then that would have compromised the mission, and then we all wouldn't be able to say it was a successful mission because it could have been compromised. But I want to ask you this, because I thought President Trump handled this as a commander-in-chief leader should.
Yes.
For how he wants to handle it. He said, that was not good. We learned a lesson. He's staying with me, Michael Waltz. He's fine. He's going to stay with me. But we all learned a lesson. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Let's keep going. And then rubbing the spot on the wall is not necessarily helping. I'm like, the President of the United States just gave you the way forward. Why not just follow him?
If they all followed President Trump yesterday, we wouldn't be talking about this today. That's the problem. And I think follow what President Trump said. They learned their lesson. They're going to correct it. They're going to find out why he was in the phone. And remember, this is a brand new administration, but they carried out the mission they were asked to do correctly. Now, it didn't go perfectly in the communications, so just correct the communications. And it's learning to work together. And some of these people are new to the administration, are new to working in government. So, yes, you're going to make some communication errors there. That's expected. Just correct it and move forward.
Okay, just to play this soundbite real quick. Waltz was on last night with Laura. Let's go ahead and listen to it before we push forward here. Watch from last night.
Okay, staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. I guess the Democrats were fine to leave all the sea lanes shut down. We're fine to have destroyers fired on dozens of times by this terrorist group, and fine to have Iran keep supplying them missiles. That was okay. The president takes decisive action, and now we're seeing some real success in taking down their air defenses, opening the sea lanes.
Okay, so that's really important stuff, and that really goes to your point. The mission was successful. Was it a screw up? Yes. Is it embarrassing? Yes. Did you like the reporter? No, you haven't liked the reporter in years. But don't come out and go after the reporter if you know that he's got the goods, and at some point they're going to be in print, which they are right now. So.
Okay, guys, first of all, like this video if you're tired of the media playing games with national security. This leak wasn't just some harmless messages. It had real-time military coordination, and it was published with deliberate timing. Guys, these weren't just texts. This was an operation timeline. The group chat included specific military times. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will drop. That's not gossip. That's battlefield coordination. Even if it wasn't technically classified, it absolutely held sensitive operational intel. But guys, do you believe our enemies, aren't watching publications like The Atlantic? So yes, this was embarrassing. This was a mistake. The Atlantic's timing is no coincidence, though. Why did Goldberg release this right before officials testified under oath? Kevin McCarthy asked it flat out, why not contact the Pentagon directly and protect the mission? This wasn't journalism, guys. This was an attempt, very clearly, to embarrass and undermine President Trump and those that are loyal to him. Look at Trump's response, though. We saw leadership. We saw accountability. We saw direction. Trump didn't deny it. He didn't hide. He said what the media never does. We messed up. We learned a lesson. That's real leadership, folks. And the rest of the GOP should have followed his lead instead of fueling the drama. Biden's administration? They would have still been playing the overclassification game. Suddenly, the same people who said Biden's calendar is classified want to downplay this leak as no big deal. You can't have it both ways, guys. Either you take military secrecy seriously, or you're just using it as a political weapon. Okay, guys, do you think this was a genuine mistake? Let me know down in the comments. Or was it sabotage aimed at Trump and his team? Should journalists like Jeffrey Goldberg be held accountable for leaking sensitive information like this? And are we seeing media activism disguised as reporting? If you're fired up about this, guys, don't just watch, engage. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Hit subscribe, guys, for more bold, unfiltered coverage like this, guys. And if you believe in what we're doing right here, consider becoming a channel member to support conservative voices that refuse to back down. We're not stopping. Let's keep pushing. Truth does matter. Let's go.